Welcome, everyone. My name is Scott Wheeler with Wheeler Business Consulting, and I want to thank NALB for inviting me to facilitate this webinar. This is actually a presentation that I made at one of the breakout sessions in the spring conference in Austin, and it was well received, and a group of people from NALB asked me if I would repeat that for those individuals that weren't able to make the conference or would like to hear this presentation further. So without any further introduction, we'll get started, and I hope you enjoy it. At the end of the presentation, there will be a period of time where I can answer questions, and certainly if you have any questions at the end, you can email me those questions also if you don't get a chance to ask them during the Q&A. The topic for this webinar is focusing on success by creating a strong personal value proposition, and then using that value proposition to build a successful business in our industry. So as an introduction, myself, I've been involved in the business for 30 years. I've been consulting to brokers, bank leasing companies, lessors, and investors in this business and funding sources for the last 3 years as a consulting to the commercial equipment leasing and finance business. The purpose of the session is to really have the participants think outside of the box, really to evaluate what value they're bringing to every transaction and how they can capitalize that value and build a marketing plan around the value that they bring. There will be some interaction. Certainly there was a ton of interaction in Austin, but in a webinar situation, the interaction will come at the end of the presentation, and we'll go from there. We'll describe what I mean by a personal value proposition, and then we'll also look at using that value to grow your business further, really to use your value proposition to get into a strategy for your company, a marketing plan, and setting some goals going out 2-3 months all the way to 2 or 3 years. So first thing we're going to do is define the personal value proposition and then talk about how you can use that to build your business. First of all, the value for our industry brings value to every transaction. The services and products that we provide to the market are very valuable. This is a huge industry. Even if you were not in the industry, it would continue to operate. We provide a very valuable service to small, medium, large companies, to publicly traded companies, privately held companies. So the value of our services are needed in the market. And I would argue that in today's environment, coming out of a recessionary period, our products are very valuable to any type of business out there. The second value comes from our business partners, and this is our funding sources, our vendors, our referral sources. They also add value to the services that we provide. So we can't underestimate as we move up from the industry to our stakeholders. They all provide us with additional value that we can present to our customers. The third level of value is, if you're a one-man operation, certainly you are the company. But if you have a secretary, a sales force, an operational person, a credit department, those individuals add value, and you can present your product by talking about the value that the company brings to a transaction. So it goes from an industry to your business stakeholders to the people that work around you on a daily basis. However, the most important attribute that you have to offer to any vendor or any end user is yourself. No other company has you. No other sales team has you to provide to that client. And right now, it's been documented through surveys and so forth that individuals, companies, vendors are looking for a strong individual to partnership with in order to provide financing, leasing services to their clients. So it's very important that we know individually, what value do we provide that's very unique in the marketplace that no one else has but ourselves that we can provide? I'm assuming that everyone can hear me and see the screen. Monica, can you just interrupt and let me know that you all can hear me?
Yes, I
Okay,
can hear
good.
you.
All right, before I go any further, thank you. There's three main components of what we do every day. And I'm going to sort of break this down and sort of work backwards. But if we really look at who we are in the marketplace, as an originator of transactions, we market ourselves, then we sell our services, and then we're definitely processors, credit people, underwriting, putting transactions together, documenting, and so forth. Those three components are primary value chain activities of our industry or any industry, any business. You have to have marketing, sales, and an operational processing department. So when you really think about it, out of the five main value chain activities of any company, we as originator of transactions, as brokers of leasing and financing transactions, we're performing three of the main components of any business. And we need to recognize how important we are in that whole process of developing value in the marketplace. Who we are specifically will distinguish ourselves against the competition and make ourselves our advantage in the market. All right? So how you market yourself, how you sell your products, how you process, you individually, distinguishes yourself from every other originator, whether a very small company, a one-man shop, or a very large international provider. It's what distinguishes yourself is your specific value that you bring to your vendors and end users. In order to maximize your income, originators must define it, market toward it, and promote consistently their specific and unique value proposition. And I was at a conference about 9 months ago, and there was a room full of originators, presidents of leasing companies, funding sources, and the speaker asked us to write down 5 values that we offer to our customers. And he gave us a minute and a half to write them down. And then he asked probably 5 to 10 individuals to stand up and present their value or what they brought to every transaction. And it was not inconsistent or unanticipated. Most of those 20 individuals shared 3 or 4 of their attributes that they brought to the market. So there was no uniqueness in the market. And these were individuals that you would have thought would have known what their value proposition is. You would have thought they would have had it down pat, like riding a bike. And quite frankly, most individuals that sell our products really have never thought about what value they bring to every transaction. So the purpose of what we're going through right now is to get you to really think about who you are, what real value do you bring to every transaction. When you start selling value, you move away from commodity offerings and commodity price. So many times as originators, we get stuck in this back in the corner of talking about the same thing that our competitors are talking about. Once we know what our real personal value proposition is, we can move where we see success in the business today. I would tell you that if you go back the last 5 years in our industry, we have moved away from a very commodity-driven business back in 07, 08, even 09. And the success that's coming to individual originators today is the originators who have truly figured out what they offer their vendors and their customers in a value proposition. The ones that have been unable to do that are lagging behind the others. Our activities, especially prospecting, take on a greater purpose and allow originators to focus on better use of their time when they actually use their value proposition to distinguish what they're going to do on a daily activity. Who am I going to call on? What vendors can I offer the most value to? Not any vendor. What end user can I provide the most value to and solicit those end users rather than this any end user. So you really need to know who you are in the market. And then a value proposition really helps to build a sustainable business model in all business cycles. The real point of this exercise is to allow originators to be successful in a downturn, in an upturn in the economy, and a stagnant and just a flat business cycle, so that they can make money no matter what the environment's doing, because they know who to go after, what to present to them, and how to present it to them. Now let me give you some examples. Typically when I ask individuals that I'm coaching or that I'm strategically working with, when I first get involved, I routinely ask them, what do you offer to your customers? And here are the typical responses. I'm hardworking, I'm very responsive. If someone calls me, I'm right on the phone talking to them. I'm competitive, I can get good pricing for them. I'm prompt, quick, easy process. I'll do all the work for them, for my customers. And I'm an industry expert. I'm very knowledgeable about what I'm doing. That's the typical answer that I get. I love all those answers. They're great attributes to bring to the market. However, my first question to someone would be, how unique is that? What makes that different than Tom across the street or Mary down the street? Why is that any different? Every originator wants to be competitive. They want to be responsive. They want to be quick. They believe they're an expert. So how do you justify how you're better than everyone else if you're all saying the same thing? The personal value proposition needs to be very specific and meaningful to the customer, not to you. These are things that you like to say as originators because it makes you feel good. I work hard and I'm very responsive to my customers. But what does that mean to the vendor or to the end user? How does that make their business better, or them able to get the transaction done? What value does that really bring? Why does Scott Wheeler's hard work more important than Jane Smith? And that's what we're going to be talking about. So these are great attributes, but they need to be better defined in order to market yourself in the market. So the whole process is, what value do you offer? And some of those examples were up there before. The difference. How are you different than your competition? Believe me, no one else in the whole world is like Scott Wheeler. And that may be a very good thing. I'm very unique in what I offer. And what my customers need to know is, why is that uniqueness good in order for them to deal with me? So the differences really leads to the benefit. What unique benefit does a client derive from you? And if you don't know that, then you certainly can't market that to your customers. So we're going to go through the process. I've listed a list of questions that you should go through to help define your value proposition. And if anyone wants a copy of this presentation, certainly send me an email afterwards, and I'd be glad to send you a copy of the presentation. Let's go through some of the questions you should be asking yourself to define your value. What experiences do you specifically bring to a transaction or to a relationship? Now, oftentimes when I'm speaking to a broker or an originator who's relatively new to the business, say 6 months in the business or 3 years in the business, but they're relatively new in the business, they always come back to me and say, well, I have limited experiences. Well, you may have limited experience selling this product, but you may have 5 years or 10 years or 20 years selling another product in the industry. For example, recently I was working with an originator who had extensive background in selling machinery in the conveyor belt and the food processing industry and so forth. 20 years of it. And I said, you need to use those experiences and bring that value to the clients that you're talking to the vendors you're talking to, because it brings a tremendous amount of value to them to know that you've been on the other side of the table for 20 years using leasing in order to help you grow your other business that you were in. So all types of experiences come to play. even if someone is relatively new to the business and they've just finished college or they just finished a graduate program, that experience is something that they should emulate, flaunt, and put out there because it defines who they are and how they can bring value to any transaction. What verifiable expertise do you have? Now, this is something that oftentimes I hear on the phone when I'm coaching or in person when I'm on site. Someone will say to me, I'm a medical equipment leasing expert. My first question is, what exactly does that mean? And they'll say, well, we do medical equipment. I'll say, well, to who? And I say, are you 90% of your business to hospitals or surgical centers or to doctor's offices or dental offices? And they go, no, I basically do x-ray equipment to radiologists. Oh, so your verifiable expertise is that you're very knowledgeable about x-ray equipment, especially x-ray equipment used in radiology departments or radiology operations. That's your expertise, not necessarily the medical industry. Now, you may be a medical expert in that you deal with multiple different medical practices for multiple different types of equipment. Then you're a generalist in the medical industry, and that's your verifiable expertise. But you need to define that because your customers and vendors don't realize what your verifiable expertise is in. Now, what level of knowledge do you have in regards to the products and services you specifically offer? And most originators are fairly well versed in the services or the products that they can offer. For example, a broker may, 90% of their business may be in the 36, 48, 60-month transactions, to advance payment, dollar buyout, and they know how that works, and they're very, very well versed in that product. Well, that's part of the value that they bring to transactions is that product. However, what level of knowledge do you have in regards to products and services which are available in the market which you don't offer? Are you well versed in fair market values or first addendum leases or special structure leases? And can you provide them? At least if you know about them and can provide them, you can sell against them. And if you bring value to part of your value proposition is that you're well aware of what is available in the marketplace and your product fits very well in this industry or this equipment type, that brings value because you are well versed in what the market is available in the market from your competitors. You can go one step further and not only be aware of what's available from your customers, but you're available where other money is available from banks, and you understand how banks work, or AR financing, or working capital loans, and you know how those products are arranged, how they're sold, and so forth. If you're very well versed on those type of things, then you're even further value to any transaction because you can speak intelligently how your product fits into the larger market. Now, what attributes are you looking for in a stakeholder? As an originator, part of your value should be that you know what the perfect vendor looks like, or you know what the perfect end user looks like. You know what the perfect referral from an accountant looks like, or a perfect referral from an attorney's office or an association that you work with. You know who you want to deal with, and you go after those type of referral sources and stakeholders that you're building your network. You're not looking for any type of referral, but the ones that you can add the most value to because of your experiences and so forth. What attributes are you looking for in a stakeholder? You need to know the answer to that question in order to build your personal value proposition. Now, continuation on these questions. Are you willing to walk away from an opportunity because it does not align with your goals, your strategies, or your capabilities? Now, let me tell you an example of this that will really hit home from you. I did a project for a nonprofit organization, a fairly large nonprofit organization, that did outreach to children and our kids in high school to get them prepared for college. And they did this for middle-income neighborhoods. They did it for urban areas. They did it for rural areas across the state of Maryland. And their board of directors would bring them 4, 5, 6 different projects, maybe 20 projects every year, and they would try to get all these projects done. And over a period of 5, 6 years, they never completed any single project. They always got 60% done, 70% done, but they were always on to something else before they got something completed. And we created, my team created a system where every project that came in the door of this nonprofit, they would look and make sure it aligned with the goals, strategies, and capabilities of the nonprofit. If it didn't, they would refuse to do it. If it did align with them, then they would put all their resources toward that project. Well, very quickly, within 18 months, they didn't look at 20 projects. They only looked at 4. But guess what? All 4 projects were completed in their entirety, had great results, and they could actually measure the results that they were getting because they perfectly aligned with the capabilities, strategies, and goals of that nonprofit. We should do the same things as a originator. We should look at a vendor or relationship, a transaction, and to be able to very quickly be able to align that opportunity with our goals, strategies, and capabilities. And the only way we can do that is to know what our value proposition is that we bring to the transaction and say, this is something that I really can add value to the process, and I can make money on doing this. When we're able to do that and we walk away from opportunities that do not align, then we free ourselves up to make more money with the transactions that we can get done, and we will look at more properly aligned transactions. Now, what do we offer that no one else in the market can offer? There's probably a list of things that you can offer to the market that no one else can. I don't care if you've been in the business 20 years or 2 months. There's something that makes you unique. And you need to answer that question of, what can I do that no one else can do? And it may be as simple as, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I do business with companies in this area, and no one else can get to these companies as quickly as I can get. It can be as simple as something like that. But believe me, there's something that you can provide that's unique. How are you going to strengthen this uniqueness? And as important to that, what are your personal weaknesses, and how are you going to mitigate these challenges? Just as we all have unique strengths, we all have unique weaknesses. And if we know what those weaknesses are and we can confront them head on as something that we're going to try to mitigate in the marketplace, and we know what they are and we face them, then we can build our value proposition in the marketplace. Believe me, Scott Wheeler has many, many weaknesses. And I try to write them down. I try to mitigate them. When I go out and market to my clients, I purposely mitigate my weaknesses as I'm going through the process. What is your personal passion, and how do you express it best? This is the key to success with any salesperson, any marketer, any broker, any originator in our business or any business. You have to know where your passion is. Your passion, and let me just throw this out because I speak a lot on this on my executive coaching sessions. Your passion isn't where business is easy. It's where you get the most reward from doing that type of business. For example, if you get involved in an industry and all of a sudden the industry takes off and you make tons of money and you're really happy with that industry, oftentimes we think we have a passion for it because it comes easy to us and we're making money and we're happy with our business. However, I've seen individuals get involved in industries and companies and so forth that it didn't come easy to them, but they wanted so badly to be part of that industry. They wanted so badly to be the leader of the services that are provided in that niche that they struggled for it, they fought for it because they had a passion to be part of that niche. And when that happens, they start adding real value to it, because their passion comes through. It's not because it's easy, it's because it's more difficult, and they still keep on knocking down the door. And if you can figure out where your passion is and know how to express it and place that passion and that drive, that internal drive that you have into your value proposition, believe me, you will become successful in that niche, in our industry, and so forth. And there's so much money to be made when we use our passion to drive our marketing and our sales and our relationships. That's where the real money is made in any business. And that should definitely be part of our value proposition. So the first question I often ask, and it's a very hard thing to answer oftentimes, especially for a sales rep that may be struggling, where's your passion? Where do you go to get business? And a guy or girl may say, you know, I'm in XYZ industry, or I go after these type of vendors, or I'm a generalist in this territory. I said, that's great. That's what you do day in and day out. But where's your passion? Why do you do what you do? Why do you call the vendors that you call? What gives you your job lives? Where are you really passionate about doing more business? Because that's the key to building your value proposition. If you know where that is, you definitely will be successful. Now, I talk a lot about personal value propositions, but a personal value proposition needs to be aligned with your company if you're part of a company, and it certainly needs, in our situation as brokers, it needs to be aligned with funding sources and their value propositions. This is really what's happened over the last several years, where we as an industry have become disjointed. What's happened is our value propositions got disaligned with our funding sources, and they were looking for different things than we were looking for, and we were going in one direction and they were going in another direction. So I would argue that in today's environment, it's probably more important than ever to know what your personal value proposition and make sure that it aligns with your other stakeholders, especially your company or your funding sources, and really to work with the funding sources that are trying to drive their business the same way you're driving theirs. And that doesn't happen by just having a phone call with your funding source or talking to them on a phone. It oftentimes happens by seeing them, by meeting them at association meetings, going visiting their home office, talking to the credit departments, understanding what they are. So part of your personal value proposition is to make sure that whatever it is, that it aligns with all your other stakeholders in the market, or you're just fighting and being confrontational. That doesn't get anyone anywhere. This whole thing should work like a machinery, very well greased. This isn't a confrontational thing. This is something that should be in alignment and be freewheeling and so forth as we go along. So part of building your value proposition is finding out what others' value propositions is. Now, developing your value proposition, how do you do it? I went through the questions, and they certainly get your mind start thinking about who you are and what you are. But there's really four areas you want to look at. The first one is most important. Who are you? Now, I'm talking about who you are in the business world or the day-in, day-out activities, but what are your life experiences? What's your education? Where's your expertise? Where's your hobbies? Who are you as a person? And you need to really get down and define that. And how does that relate to driving new business? Okay. Second thing is, who are your customers? What are their needs? What are their challenges? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? In order to offer value to your customers, you have to know what their needs are, what their challenges are. And the only way really to do that is to totally engage yourself with your customers, either in a personal meeting or on the phone or through multiple conversations. One of my biggest pet peeves in our whole industry is I work with individual sales reps, and I go to their CRM program, or I go sit next to them while they're making phone calls, and they're calling on a customer, and I see that they've been calling on my customer for 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. And I see that every time they talk to that customer, they've talked to the same person. They don't have anyone else in that organization. Well, really to engage with a vendor or with an end user, You should have multiple contacts within that organization, and you should know multiple needs, multiple challenges. How do they market themselves? What are they doing in order to increase their sales as a vendor? What are they doing as an end user in order to grow and become more competitive? There's a lot more to ask the client than, do you have any equipment needs or do you have any leasing needs today that you can give to me so that I can make money? Instead of begging for business, part of the process of adding value is understanding who our customers are. And the only way to do that is to really be an investigator and find out what their needs, wants, strengths, and weaknesses are. Now, the other part of developing your value proposition is, who are your complementers, your business partners, funders, vendors, any network, anyone that helps you to do more business? Who are they? What do they offer unique to you and to your clients? And too often times, we don't investigate that process enough. We're so glad when we get a lead from a vendor, or we get a lead from a referral source, or a funding source approves a transaction for us. We're so elated that we just go on with our business. Well, part of building your value is to understand your complementers and to be able to offer them solutions that they can improve upon so that their challenges and needs are met. And you do that because you know who they are. And that's where you're able to offer your complementary value, and everything starts to bring together. Now, there's a fourth development of your value proposition, and this is the development that most originators never cross this line. They just don't want to do it. And this is where we get into, who are your competitors? What do they offer? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Unless you know what your competition is, you can't make yourself unique in the marketplace. So one of the things that I encourage originators, companies, organizations, that they should spend some time any given year talking to, seeing their competitors, seeing where their strengths are. I don't care who you are. There's always a competitor that has a strength that you don't. They also have weaknesses that you don't. It's not that you need to jam these down their throat, but if you know them, you can react better to the marketplace. And guess what? Competition changes from day to day, week to week, year to year. So it's not a process that happens today and then you forget about it. Knowing your competition is something that's an ongoing process. And unless you do that and you know what their products are, what their strengths are and so forth, you can't develop your place within the market. So you must know who you are, who your customers should be, who your competition, and your complementers. And when you start putting these three things or four things together, you can start building your own personal value proposition. Now, a value proposition should come down to 5 to 10 strong attributes which you can offer to your clients. It's not a list of 300. And I've recently worked with someone that basically came down to 4 main attributes which are very, very unique in the marketplace. And that's what they're using to promote themselves. So oftentimes, someone that doesn't go through this process, they're constantly changing. They have a list of 35 different things, and hey, this week we're going to take number 17, 18, and 19, and we're going to go out there and we're going to say this is what we can do and see how it works. And if it works well, we'll do it next week. If it doesn't, we'll go to number 28, 23, and 3, and we'll use those. Well, there becomes no consistency in the marketplace, and what we end up doing is we're looking for one transaction rather than looking to build our business on a foundation of true value to everyone that we meet. Okay? Your value proposition must be consistently and frequently communicated. This should be like riding a bike. When you meet someone in a restaurant, they ask you what you do. I'm a lease broker, and these are the things that I provide to my customers. Boom, boom, boom. That's what it is. That's who I am. That's how I drive my business. If you can do that to a stranger in a restaurant or a friend or a neighbor, and you can do it to a vendor and you can do it to an end user, and it's always the same, guess what? This repetitiveness makes that value more valuable to you and to your clients. Value propositions are really nice, but if you can't back them up with strong actions. Anyone can, words are words, but when you can start backing your words up with true action of why that attribute is so valuable not only to you but to your customers, then it takes on real meaning all by itself. In order to tip the scales in your favor in today's competitive marketplace, it has to be a strong PVP. It has to be very strong, and it has to have meaning behind it. Let me give you an example of a value proposition process that I went through with someone, and they've given me the authority to show this to you. Their name and the industries have been changed, but sort of the process. There was an individual, and actually this was last fall, so it's been a while ago, and this has gone from about 15 down to about 3, then up to 7, and then down to 5. But this is a process of examples that he came up to with that were his value. He concentrates 100% of his efforts in one industry. That's what he does, and that's value to the people in that industry. 100% of his clients are within a 100-mile radius of his office. He felt like that was a value that he brought to the market. My company offers unique funding options specifically tailored to that industry. Okay? He has ongoing relationships with, out of the top 10 manufacturers in this industry, he's dealing with today 4 of them. Okay? So he has relationships with the vendors and manufacturers who supply equipment to that industry, name recognizable manufacturers he does business with today. That's true value to the clients. His company is funded in excess of so many million of equipment in the past few years. He personally funded X amount in the first quarter of 2011. I changed it. It was the third quarter of 2010 when we did this. He prides himself on keeping up to date in the industry by participating in regional events and annual functions. He's actually on the board of one of the industry associations, so he's very involved in it. He routinely offers customers unique programs which allow them to acquire state-of-the-art widget-making machinery, which is brand new to this industry. Because of my strong relationships and business partnerships with large national funding sources, we're also committed to this industry. And also they have an internal program which they offer to preferred clients that's absolutely unique in that industry. All right? So there's very unique things in this business. There are certainly other brokers that deal in this industry, but most of them don't strictly concentrate in this industry. So there's real value there. Here's something. I had been coaching this person for probably 2 months. And when we went through this process, I found out for the first time that he actually was a CPA 10, 15 years ago. He has a strong financial background. Therefore, I'm able to work closely with my clients, understand their financial strengths, and I can actually be an advisor to my clients rather than just another sales rep on the street. Huge value, and something that he needed to bring up. Now we took these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 8 attributes that he came up with. We took these, and we actually, at one point it was 15, at one point it got down to 10, then it went up to 12. We took these and reworded them and reworded them and reworded them till he eventually came down to about 5 or 6 values that he believed were of the utmost importance to his vendors and end users. And that's what he started to go out to the market with every email, with every marketing piece, was here's who I am in the marketplace. With a value proposition, it's more than just a process. The process doesn't bring in business. It's the result for the process. Once you have this, you can start focusing on what you do best. Originators can build stronger funding relationships because when they go to their funders and say, this is who I am, this is who I'm going after, this is what I provide these people, this is how I'm marketing myself, this is who I am. Believe me, funders and funding sources much rather have a broker that knows who they are in the market rather than someone that's yellow on Monday, blue on Tuesday, purple on Wednesday, that's something different every day. right? Most importantly is your time management skills. Once you develop a personal value proposition, you can start managing your time so that you can work smarter. You can work, when you work harder, you get immediate results. You can measure what you're doing. Originators will increase their personal income and be stronger leaders in the industry. And I'll give you a very specific one of these. I've been working with someone since January. They've been in the business for 10 years. They certainly were a strong originator. And we went through this process and we built his real value proposition. And now he's out marketing very strongly to a specific group of vendors and end users. And he's actually building his database with the type of clients that he can help the most. And he told me just on Friday that his business has literally almost doubled in the last 5 months because he has a new purpose behind why he calls people. He has a purpose behind accepting that application. He has a purpose to find new funding sources because he's driven toward one focus of what he can do. Now, that doesn't mean he can't take that focus and broaden it through different industries and so forth, but he knows who he is in the marketplace. Originators can grow their business exponentially when they have their value proposition in place. Now, what can you accomplish? Once you have this, you can start building a strategy. And that's what we need to do to move forward in the market rather than being status quo. When you start realizing who you are, you can start looking toward the future and looking toward building your business by marketing yourself more effectively. You can present yourself to business partners and funders with more clarity, with more confidence, with more purpose. You can develop an executive summary of who you are and present it to a funder and say, this is a document that says who I am and what I do, and this is why I would like to partnership with you, because I see you as someone that I need to have in my back pocket in order to add even more value to the clients I'm already working with. And most importantly, you start building a meaningful database with potential clients who can provide, you can provide the most value to. Here's a very clear indication of what this will do for you. Instead of having a database of 5,000 end users or 2,000 vendors that you're calling on, and 80–90% of them really are not a match to who you are, you may be able to take that database down to 500, okay? But those 500 end users or vendors are clients, are potential clients that you know that you would add value to their business. You would add value to what they're trying to accomplish. And then you can start building that database from 500 to 700, back down to 400 to 800, down to 500, down to 1,000. But you have a meaningful database. There's no security in large number database that is just numbers and names, but they aren't aligned with who you are. I'd much rather have 10 or 15 vendors that are perfectly aligned to who I am rather than 200 vendors that none of them are aligned with who I am. The only way you're going to know who those 10 or 15 or 20 vendors would be is to know who you are and to go out and really promote yourself to the right vendors and end users. Now, you also start building a strategy. This is the first step in building a strategy. And what is a strategy? Now is the time to be investing in where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? And I'll probably go through this later in the presentation, but I'll do it now. I believe we're all sitting on an opportunity right now that's greater than we've seen in this industry in 15 years if we do this properly. If we position ourselves properly in the marketplace and go out and aggressively solicit the right customers and build a personal strategy, I believe that we are going to see a growth in our industry that we haven't seen in 15 to 20 years. And that growth is going to come in the next, we're already in it in 2011, but it's going to start to accelerate in 12 and 13. And I believe, and I'm already seeing this, originators that are seeing double-digit increases in their business, not year over year, but quarter over quarter. But the individuals that are doing that, whether they're a broker or whether they're originating for a firm or whether they're originating for a leasing company or bank leasing company, the individuals that are seeing that happen are the ones that have a clear-cut strategy of where they want to go. So my first question is, what is a strategy? It's a path from your mission to your vision. And all a mission and vision is a mission is where you are now, and a vision is where you want to go. Okay? So you need to determine where you are now, and you need to determine where you want to be and what value you bring to the market to be able to accomplish that vision. All right? A personal value proposition is a step in developing the personal strategy. It's not your strategy. It's just a step in it. And this is a path toward the future. And the main question you want to ask whenever you do anything, whenever you pick up the phone to call someone, whenever you do a campaign to a particular industry, whether you do mass emails, whatever activity you do, you must ask the question, what must be true for me to realize my vision? And is this activity helping that to become true? So it's very important for us to know where we are, know where we're going to go, and start planning our strategy for the future. Now, not every funder is a right partner for every originator. However, when their value propositions align, both mutually benefit. We all have had funders that we've done a deal with or we've done 2 deals with, but then we don't do any more transactions with because we really weren't properly aligned. There's no shame in that, and you still should have them as a relationship, but you want to have funders that are properly aligned with who you are. By defining your true value proposition, you can attract and maintain relationships with more of the right vendors, okay? And this is very, very relevant in today's world because in today's world, the vendors are looking for strong partners. For the first time in many years, we're seeing vendors going to leasing companies and lease brokers and trying to find the right connection. This is a two-way relationship, and they're doing the same thing we're doing right now, trying to build strong partners that can provide their clients with financing. Once you define your present, you can present yourself to banks and other stakeholders with confidence and attract the right members into your network. There's a lot of brokers right now that are working on bank relationships where the banks are referring them business. They're referring with banks as a way to get transactions done on a direct basis. When you have your value proposition put together and you build an executive summary around that value proposition, you can confidently go out to your network, go out to your stakeholders, and start building more meaningful relationships with all these stakeholders. You also should use it to market yourself. Every sales call should emphasize your value. Every touch should be framed around your value. I did a coaching session this morning with someone I've been coaching for about 4 weeks, and we've been working through this, and he goes, Scott, this already has worked for me. I have a customer that I've been struggling to get an application with and so forth, and I took my value proposition, and when he actually went out to see the customer, and he said, when I was there, all I spoke about was the value that I could bring to him and how I had done it for other clients, and how that value had helped other clients grow their businesses. He said all of a sudden the client was saying, I need to deal with you. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a financial partner that is really committed to my industry and to helping me to grow my business, that's willing to understand my business. And you've just proved to me by what you've said that you're the kind of partner that I need to work with. And he said, basically, I wasn't even selling. All I was doing was telling him the value that I brought to other clients and how they had benefited from me individually. And all of a sudden, he wanted to deal with me. So it's a very powerful selling tool when you put that down. As a broker, you should have an executive summary which concisely describes your business to potential funders, and summary should highlight your personal value proposition. I'm a huge believer in documenting yourself, and an executive summary is usually a 1 or 2 page, very concise document that you can take to anyone, whether it's you're trying to hire a new employee, whether it's trying to get a new funding source, no matter what it is, what type of relationship it is, you could present a summary of who you are and what you provide to the market, and it can concisely, very easily points to who you are in the marketplace. If you don't have one of those, you need to develop one. But the only way you can develop a meaningful executive summary is if you know what your PVB is. Now, it should drive your activities. Okay, when you're doing something, whether it's making phone calls, sending out letters, sending out campaigns, doing a blast email, going out visiting vendors, going out on the road knocking on doors, prospecting, whatever it is, you should look at that activity and say, does this strengthen my value or does it take away from my value? And any activity which aligns with your strategy, which aligns with your value, strengthens your value, you should increase that activity. Any activity that does not align with it, you should either eliminate it totally or decrease it or change it or do whatever. This is where this becomes a real time-saving activity. It may take you over the next month, over the next six weeks, it may take you a total of 10 hours or 15 hours, not all at one time. This is not a situation where you sit down and you do it. This is a situation where you spend a half an hour, you move away from it, come back to it, change it. But over a period of time, if you come down to a concise thing, and then everything you do, you measure against that strategy, that value proposition, and if it doesn't align, you stop doing it because it's not going to produce income for you. If it does align with it, you do more of it. So your time management becomes so much more acute at that point. We talked about the database management. A large database doesn't ensure success. A database which includes potential vendors and individuals which truly benefit from you is one powerful thing. It will generate more business for you than you can imagine. When an originator embraces their value, it's easier to penetrate a potential client because the process has more meaning and purpose. Let me give you an example of this. I believe in campaigning, and user campaigning, and industry campaigning, an individual campaigning to get in there and do business with them. If you're going to do a campaign, you have to allow that customer, that organization, that vendor, that end user to know that by dealing with you, you will increase the value to them. Just like a politician running for office, they have to have some bulletproofs of why you should vote for them. In doing a campaign, you should have your value proposition right out front talking to them. And when you know that strongly, you can talk to that vendor and user not once, not twice. You can talk to them 100 times about it because you're so passionate about what you can do to help him grow his business. Now, something that, and I've done this with about 30 originators across the country over the last 9 months, I guess, to really look at clients that you've done a transaction with, okay, and figure out how many times you had to touch that customer before you actually got a commitment from them to do business with you. And the average touch before someone will commit to do business in our industry today ranges between 6 and 12 touches before they commit to us. And that doesn't mean that on the first call we can't get an application. It doesn't mean on the second call that somebody won't sign off and off you go. It happens. But on average, it takes us 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 touches before someone commits to do business with us. So we have to have something to speak about, to talk about, to write about 6, 7, 8 times before they're willing to commit to us. And my explanation is they want to make sure that you're the one that can bring value to this transaction to them. So whatever your value proposition is, it has to be something that you can speak about routinely, consistently, over and over again, and it's not boring. It is boring to say to someone 6 times, I'm a nice guy, I wear black shoes, and I'm real cute, so you should do business with me. Or I will make the process easy for you. I'll make the process prompt for you. Or that's what everyone else is saying. You need to engage yourself in long-lasting conversations about who you are and what you truly provide to them to be able to do business so that you can move toward the value you're adding to the transaction rather than I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole. This is really managing your database, campaign to your database, and it's a key to the success of any broker. Now, and we talked about continuous. Every touch reaffirms an originator's value. It can't be superficial. A weak relationship becomes a thing of the past. Originators can build a database with confidence. Every marketing campaign becomes so much more meaningful. Now, to build this thing, it takes a commitment to define your value proposition, to develop a personal strategy, to build a meaningful database. This isn't something you do every other Thursday or for 5 minutes on Monday morning. This is something that a strong leader in originating transactions does on a continuous basis, and they're constantly trying to figure out how can they improve their value, how can they broaden their strategy, how can they build a more meaningful database. This is something that should drive you of what you're doing. Now, in the environment we're in right now, I see this as everyone needs to revisit who they want to be in the new economy to be successful. It's more importantly now to have all these things in place in order to be successful. And hope is not a strategy. I want to make that very clear. Too many people that I speak to say, well, I hope things get better, and I hope the economy. Hope is not a strategy. A strategy is a very personal process that you go through, and a strategy will work no matter what the environment is out there because you're committed to improving yourself, improving your clients, improving where you're going to be in 3 months or 3 years or 30 years. A strategy is a path to where you're going. And once again, hope is not a strategy. That concludes the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I do want to, before we open it up, I do want to mention that I do executive coaching. I help people and companies build strategies, build personal value propositions. If you certainly can do this on your own if you like, but it's so much more meaningful to have someone else facilitate the process for you. If you need help, I'm certainly available and be glad to give you a proposal on it. Some of these executive coaching is very, very inexpensive. So if you're interested, certainly give me a call. My phone number is up here, and my email is certainly up here that you can email me. Now, I'd like to, Monica, if we can, to open it up and see if there are any questions that I can answer. Are you there? Hello?
We're unmuting everyone, and then they should be able to ask questions. So just take a few minutes.
I just had this big fear that I went through an hour talking and no one heard me.
No. Okay, everyone's unmuted. So if anyone has questions, please ask them now.
Pick up some food. You gonna go to the gym?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I've got a 2 o'clock today,
2 o'clock.
and that's it.
All right.
We'll be back.
Does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
We're good. If anyone does and they want to send them to me individually through an email, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Yeah, Scott, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this presentation. I found that there's some things in here that were refreshing that probably people know already, but it was good. It was definitely good material.
Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
Jeff Bland at Trifin Capital.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. again, none of this stuff is earth-shattering new. It's a process that we need to be reminded of, and especially in today's environment, to move to the next level of development. It just needs to happen. And it is happening. I can tell you that many originators in today's market are seeing a lot of success because they're well organized and they have a plan for the future.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, Scott, thank you for your time, and thank everyone for your time, and we hope to be able to offer more webinars as the year goes on. Everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.